As I said, my name is Mark Cooley. I'm one of the directors on the board of the Arlington Street Foundation, and it's been an absolute honor to be able to serve on that board. It's been my honor because I had another honor, and that was starting my teaching career at Gordon Bell, where although Mr. Gardner wasn't able to convince me to be a Leafs fan, I did learn some other really, really important skills. And my present job is mentoring new teachers to the inner city district of Winnipeg School Division. I couldn't do that job. In fact, I owe that job to my time at Gordon Bell, because I came into that job fully skilled. I had an education degree, an arts degree. I even had a degree in folklore, which is a long story I'll tell you later. But I didn't know how to teach. And it wasn't that I couldn't teach students, it's that I couldn't teach the kids at Gordon Bell. And it's because I wasn't aware of the gap between my experience in life and the experiences they had. I had big ideas about trying to save kids and help them out, and they're inner city kids, and I had a big conscience and a social consciousness. And the problem was the kids at Gordon Bell didn't need my help. They needed me to pay attention to them, and they needed me to listen to their stories. And this scholarship is about hearing the stories of the students at Gordon Bell, and a testament to just the effect that these students have on us. If you teach at Gordon Bell or were a teacher at Gordon Bell, raise your hand. When Dave Coulter put out the word that there was this fundraiser going on, the first people to respond were people who'd retired from the school, because you don't actually retire from the school. It's been a few years since I've taught there, but it gets its hooks into you. It gets its hooks into you with the students who are our winners that I'm going to introduce to you in just a second, but it also gets its hooks into you because of the realizations you make about yourself. So one quick story, and I'm counting, I had 5, so this is one. I was teaching grade 10 upgrading English, and I loved this class because it was all boys and me. And I wasn't married at the time, so I was working really hard to not be fat. Thankfully, I'm married now. But I would go out at lunch and I'd play basketball or football or floor hockey or whatever it was with the boys, and then we'd come back to my class and we'd just sort of dry off. Like we'd come in just sweating, and if you went to Gordon Bell, if you're a student, you know the high quality of air circulation that goes on in the building, and the room just stank of ammonia. But I didn't mind it. It was them and it was me, and we were just kind of like, it's sort of a sweat hog scene. But about halfway through the year, in walks this girl into my class. Her name's Alice Ruringirwa. And Alice came into my class from Rwanda. She was the oldest kid in her family, and so the only one who came over knowing why she came without her mom. And when she came to my class, the first impression I got was of a flower wilting, because she showed up for school every day dressed like she was going to church or to meet the Prime Minister. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was like a pressed blood, like the way you look now, all you ladies, like just absolutely gorgeous. And she'd come in and sit there, and the wave of ammonia would hit her, and you just sort of feel her suffering through it. And she'd read this book, and I'm like, oh man, I'd lean down to help her with her pronunciation. And she'd say, thank you, Mr. Cooley. So finally, I pulled her aside, and I said, Alice, it's just Gordon Bell. Like, why do you come here dressed so nice? And she looks at me, and she says, oh, Mr. Cooley, it's because life is not a mountain. And I'm a well-meaning white English teacher, so I nodded as if I knew what she meant. And then I read, I don't actually know. I said, what do you mean? And she said, mountains last forever. And in that second, she showed me that the classroom that I was teaching in was not a room with tiles cracking on the floor where we were teaching upgrading English to kids who might not graduate. It was a temple that she had come from the other side of the earth to find, to live the dreams that her mother had for her. I didn't need to look at her deficits. I didn't need to look at what she needed to get by. All I needed to do was look at her strengths and give her a hand up. And that's what this scholarship's about. So I want to introduce you to the students who have won this scholarship very quickly. And then I hope that you'll take your time to meet them yourself. I want to introduce you to Melissa Madruga. Melissa has come here to Charleswood from West Broadway. And Melissa may look sweet and soft and innocent, but underneath her skin, she's made of concrete and barbed wire. She's lived a life that has been characterized by conflict, and her response to that at the University of Winnipeg is to study conflict resolution, which she just declared her major in. Melissa. I want to introduce you to Almaz. Almaz, who's come to us from Ethiopia and who forged a family with just her sister to be able to make a life here. You've already heard that she's just been entered into the Faculty of Education. What you haven't heard is that she was just in the Metro newspaper for creating a project called Voices of Winnipeg on Facebook, where she goes around on the street and says, "Hi, who are you? I'm going to take your picture. Tell me what you like about diversity. Who are you in Winnipeg?" And then broadcast the diversity of this city on Facebook. That's the kind of student we're talking about. Almost. I want to tell you about Colleen. Colleen, you'd have to talk to her for hours before, and you would talk to her for hours, because boy, she can talk. You think I'm long-winded. She's got energy and heart and passion. You'd have to talk to her for hours before you'd find out that the contribution that turned our hearts around at the scholarship interview was that Colleen lives on Ross Avenue, right in the shadow of Freight House. She lives in the area that the students I work with call the Hood. And yet the place she's from doesn't define her. What defines her is that she spent the last 4 years volunteering whenever she had a spare moment at Health Sciences Center, because she embodies the fact that it doesn't matter how much you have, it's what you give. It's Colleen. And finally, our latest recipient, Ruth. Where are you, Ruth? She's in the back. Ruth. Ruth, who's come to Gordon Bell from all sorts of paths, but through Eritrea. And suffice it to say that Ruth is right now engaged in her dream of getting a PhD in biochemistry. And it's not just because she really likes biochemistry, which I don't understand at all. I don't even understand how you can like it, but it's fine. It's great. I'm really glad there are people who like those things. But the reason that she's creating a dream by doing that is because she's turning her mother's worries and nightmares into the dream life that she brought her family here to create. That's Ruth. But I could talk up here for a lot longer because I really like talking in front of people. I'm not going to. What I'm going to do is ask you to welcome our first scholarship winner, who taught us everything we've learned about this scholarship up here, to tell you her story, because that, I think, will be the clearest illustration of why this scholarship is so close to our heart. Lynn.
Okay, I'm going to try not to cry here. Okay. Hello, my name is Lynn Rutan, and I am the first recipient and university graduate of the Arlington Street Foundation Scholarship. I remember the first time I met Frank Lonardelli. I was sitting in a high school biology classroom where some strange man in a fancy suit started talking about a scholarship in which he donated $100,000 to create. He also introduced this concept called the hero's journey. The hero's journey is about finding the hero within by accepting the call to adventure, then facing challenges and temptations, and transforming into a hero. Well, I am here today to tell you about my hero's journey. My journey all started when I was 11 years old. I walked into my room and found my mom hysterically crying in my bed. I immediately knew something was wrong. When she finally calmed down, all she said was, "We have to go to the hospital." And from this moment, my life changed. When I arrived at the hospital, my doctor told me that I had been diagnosed with idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, also known as ITP. A normal human being has 150 to 250,000 platelets in their body at one time. When I was diagnosed, I had 0. I was at a high risk of brain hemorrhaging. I was immediately hospitalized and transfused with an IVIG, but my body quickly rejected it. Our final option was to pump high doses of steroids into my body, and if it didn't work, I would have to have an emergency splenectomy. Luckily, the steroids worked. I later found out that children my age who are diagnosed with ITP usually grow out of it in about a year, but I was one of the unlucky ones. I have now lived with ITP for 11 years, and my condition has become chronic. When I started junior high, I immediately fell in love with playing sports. But soon my blood kept crashing, and I had to continue on high doses of steroids. Although the steroids raised my platelet counts, they also had terrible symptoms. The steroids would deteriorate my bones, and they became fragile. I couldn't sleep at night, and I ate at all hours of the day. And my body started to retain weight. So my doctor told me to quit playing sports for the sake of my health. But that wasn't an option for me. I continued to play sports for my entire 6 years at Gordon Bell and attempted to balance my health issues with my love of sports. I suffered from many broken, sprained, and fractured bones. In fact, during one basketball game in grade 12, I sprained multiple fingers and was playing with all my hands taped up. But I soon realized it was very hard to shoot when 3 fingers. So of course I just decided to take the tape off and play with sprained fingers. I decided to write about my blood disorder for my scholarship application as my adversity portion of the 3As. I must have done well because the next thing I knew, I was being called in for an interview. I walked into the interview and I was terrified. I had never been interviewed before, not even for a job, let alone an interview that would decide my future. So there I was, sitting in front of this very intimidating man, and he was asking me really difficult questions that I've never even thought about myself. I knew all the other students who were interviewed, but I didn't really think I was going to win, because I knew those other students some were smarter than me, some were more athletic than me, and some had overcome a lot more than me. I didn't think I was going to win until there was a moment in my interview when I could see a tiny smile on Frank's face and his eyes lit up. That moment was when I said, even if I don't win this scholarship, it is not going to stop me from going to university and fulfilling my dreams. When I won, I had to sign a contract. The board looked over my marks and decided an acceptable GPA would be a 3.0. I believed I could do better, so I made a target GPA of a 3.5. My GPA was tested in my 3rd year of university. I was taking a really challenging sociology course where there were no papers but 3 tests, which were worth all of my marks. I had already taken the first 2, and they didn't go too well. I was scared because this was the first time in my university career where I believed I wouldn't obtain my GPA. It took several weeks for me to gain the courage to confront the board and talk about my situation. I was terrified, and I had the worst case scenarios running through my head. But instead of scolding me, Paul immediately emailed me back and asked when we could meet. When we met, he was extremely supportive and helped me with studying tips and discussed the content with me. In the end, I passed that course way above an F, a B+ in fact, and that is when I truly know the board had my back. Their support meant the world to me when I decided to take my next risk. I was contemplating moving to Thailand for 10 months to finish my final year of university, but I had doubts. The first thing that ran through my mind was my blood disorder. How would I manage my blood disorder in a country where I knew nobody and I didn't speak the language? I talked about it with my doctors and my parents, and both said it was fine to go even with all my health problems. But I still had doubt. Then I remembered something my doctor told me when I was first diagnosed. Ever since I've been diagnosed with my blood disorder, I have been able to tell when my platelet count is low and when it has crashed. And he said that throughout his entire career working with children with blood disorders, he has never seen a child be so in tune with their body that they knew when something was wrong. There's always something holding you back, if you look for it. But I decided not to let it, and I decided to go to Thailand. Mark told me a couple weeks ago that when I'm given options, I don't accept any of them, and I create my own option. Well, my option and the type of future educator I want to be goes back to my history at Gordon Bell High School. I want to be the kind of educator that I had when I was at Gordon Bell. I want to have a multicultural classroom where we can learn from each other's experiences. I want to have a classroom full of open-minded students who embrace new concepts and ideas. I want to be able to discuss real issues with students, real issues going on around us, even if they are controversial. I want my students to be accepting of everyone they encounter every day. That is the type of students I went to high school with, and those are the type of educators that I had teaching me. In the hero's journey, the hero emerges at the end with a message or a gift. Well, I have both. My message is to not doubt yourself and let things hold you back, but to believe in yourself and you will be able to exceed your own expectations. My gift is to create what I learned at Gordon Bell with my future students. As of now, the next chapter of my journey has begun, the chapter of giving back. This scholarship has given so much to me and has helped me in more ways than anybody could understand. With your support, you can help impact a student's future in the best way possible and help their dreams come true, just like mine have come true. Thank you.
So I know that we're going to have to say goodbye to some of the Gordon Bell staff who actually have their other graduation to go to. But just before you leave, this is one thing. No offense to all the developers, lawyers, doctors, dentists, dentist teachers, who I think we even have one of in the room. But I think I don't want to pass this opportunity to have all of you in here welcome Lynn to the best profession in the world. And on with the program. All right. I'm just going to tell you one really quick thing, because, a little scaffold for you to understand about the scholarship, and then I'm going to bring up Frank, who is going to tell you about all kinds of things. They always have rapt attention when he's speaking. I just want to tell you a bit about the scholarship process. And the process is really exacting. So what happens is students at Gordon Bell see Frank come and speak, and he lays out the criteria for the scholarship, which Lynn's talked about, and Paul's talked about, which is confronting adversity and learning from it, academic capacity, and athletic excellence. Those three criteria are presented to students. They apply in writing to us. They have to do a lifeline, tell their life story, and then we choose a short list. We sit down with all those candidates in a rigorous, in-depth, heart-wrenching interview, and the heart-wrenching part is for us, because then we spend the next 2 weeks trying to figure out who best fits that criteria. Once we've chosen a candidate, we ask them to sign a contract. Ruth signed hers today, that identifies an academic target that they're going to aim for, and also identifies a mentor who's going to work with them for their whole undergraduate time. And finally, after all that's set up, we offer 5 years of financial funding. Well, financial funding for a complete undergraduate degree. So when you're supporting the scholarship, that's the kind of program you're supporting. And we found that it's a model that is working really well. In fact, Frank was just on the phone with the Right Honorable Paul Martin, who has been setting up an Aboriginal education initiative. And after looking at our program, he said he hadn't seen a program for post-secondary success that was anything like ours, and he's writing a memorandum of support so that we can take that forward and expand the program going forward. So, That's the nitty-gritty of it. But and I have to say I'm a little disappointed, not in any of you, but I think 5 people tonight have spoken about Frank having a fancy suit. And I'm a teacher, and I've been pretty tired of Frank having fancy suits. So I went out 2 weeks ago on Father's Day, despite having a pulled groin, which I thought was a hernia, because I'm old and fat, and I went to Moore's and I dropped $750 on this suit, and I got another one free. But what do I see when I come in here? Frank's wearing damn jeans.
I was supposed to say some things tonight, is that right, Mark?
Yes, you have to say some things.
I don't, I guess my first comments would be simple, and if you don't get the scholarship program and its benefit and what it's about after hearing Lynn speak, then can't do anything for you. It's interesting, I'm a horrible spectator and an unbelievable participant. It was difficult to sit and listen to the story because we're in it, and when you're in it, you're not really thinking about the outside emotions and what the kids are going through and what we're all involved in. But it's been an amazing 5 years. I got an interesting phone call from, is this clicker working? Can I start clicking? The foundation of the program is not about where you end up, but what you've had to overcome to get there. And I got a phone call from Gordon Sinclair last week, and he called and wanted to follow up on the article he wrote in the Winnipeg Free Press 5 years ago. It was a really great article that was written, and we had this about hour-and-a-half long conversation. There'll be a follow-up to that article tomorrow about our program and about Lynn. And we started talking, and he said, what are the surprises? What are the surprises that took place after you launched the program? Because, as a business person, what you do is you set up a business plan. And by the way, a business plan is just a set of assumptions until you go to the real world and stress test it with people. And I immediately started writing down a bunch of things, and I thought instead of saying, giving you a speech today, I thought I'd tell you the top 10 things that have surprised me since I've launched the Arlington Street Foundation Scholarship. And to do that, you kind of got to go back a little bit. So I wasn't back in the school for 22 years, so when I went back to the school, I started thinking about all the things that, you think about when you're in high school. I don't know if you've ever done that before. What did you used to think about? What did you look like? What did you talk like? What were the things that were going on in your mind? And so we're going to go back to the future a little bit. Of course, an homage to the 80s. And when you tend to go way back, things become very, very clear. That may be a bit too far back. But one of the things that I was really concerned about was, what is the one thing that I'm most proud of that I did at school? And I realized it wasn't anything that I did, but it's what I had. And the thing that I'm most proud of that I had was probably the best mustache in grade 12. That mustache got me into a lot of bars when I was 14 and 15 years old. And those of you who know negotiation strategy, you always want to put out the bad picture of yourself before someone else does. So that's that. And it's interesting because, I know, okay, ventilate, let it happen, that's good, perfect. And of course, the other part about it was we had pretty good hair back then, like really, really good hair back then. And I realized that it's a trait genetically in our family. And these are my 3 sisters. Maria, class of 82, Laura, 83, and my sister Angie, 84. That is a follically advanced family, if I've ever seen one. And of course, those of you who understand what was going on at that time in our lives back in the mid-'80s understand that we had one very specific Italian that I think should have won several Academy Awards and was, in my opinion, one of the best actors of the 80s, who was our inspiration, and that's another fellow Italian. So if you wanted to know where the hairdos came from, he drew first blood. So that was that. Anyways, I'm supposed to be seeing what the next images are, but I can't see, so I'm going to guess what the next images are. Can you turn that around? Is there a, no? Can you see it? All right, well, we'll just see what happens then. When you do a PowerPoint presentation, you're supposed to see the next slide that comes up, and I can't see the next slide that comes up. The other thing that, I just remembered what it was. The other thing is when you set up a business plan, one of the things you want to do is you want to figure out what your downside is. So if everything goes to poop, what are you going to have left? And we did something very interesting. We build boutique buildings in Calgary. So I'm kind of into design, and I like the way things look. And so we said, you know, if things don't go as planned, we should at least have the coolest trophy of any program across the scholarship program in Canada. And those are our trophies. So I happen to think that these are the nicest trophies of any scholarship program in Canada. I think, and I'm just going to, sorry about that. Yeah, there you go, it's a little cheat there. When we were going through the program and building the program, one of the things that happened at Gordon Bell was the Gordon Bell Green Space Initiative. Now I'm a developer, and developers, if they're smart, they're very skeptical. And the idea that you're going to put a field in the middle of this concrete oasis made absolutely no sense to me. And I didn't get the vision. So I was asked to support the foundation, and we did financially, but I didn't get my shoulder behind it. But I can tell you, if I've been surprised by one thing, it's just how unbelievably impactful the green space in downtown Calgary has been just beside Gordon Bell. Winnipeg, just say. Jet lag, I guess. You know, this place is not a field of dreams. It's not a place where people play soccer. It's where people get together and share their lives. And if you go there at any time during the course of the day, you're going to find people having picnics outside of the field. You're going to see people playing on the field. And what you're going to see is a lot of positive energy. And trust me, when you're in this area of town and you have the type of stories that these students have, you need positive energy. And if this thing is anything, it is an incredibly positive place. Arlene's skull is gone, and I wish she would have been here, and it'll be taped, so we'll send it to her. But what you probably don't know is that of all the people who are working incredibly hard to get that green space done, if Arlene wasn't in front of it with the perseverance and passion she had, this would have never happened. So we'll congratulate her when you see her next time. Number 4, things that I was surprised by, is what happens when you actually go and tell your story. Now, I've been doing this for about 12 years now, and telling my story is about going back and getting connected with people. You know, all of us have a story, and the problem with our stories is we don't want to tell anyone about it, because it's vulnerable. It's scary to share what your mystery is. It's scary to share what you don't want to talk about. And everyone's got a story, so the way you bend time with people is you get intensely vulnerable. And if you get vulnerable with people, especially students of this school, they will give back to you in a way that you couldn't possibly imagine. I've been blown away by how much the students have told us in their interviews. And if those weren't life-changing moments for the board, I don't know what was. And during this process, we get to engaged with the kids. And I mean right in their face. You get a group of 55 kids who are listening to a life story, and you ask a kid a question, and he's never talked about his life before, and in the middle of this whole group, he starts telling you about what happened when he was a kid. It's an amazing exercise. So Lynn talked about the hero's journey. I want to give all of you a little tool tonight. This is your hero's journey. And if you're married, you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, or both. If you, that was a joke. If you happen to have a company, if you happen to have a grandmother or grandfather, it amazes me what people don't know about the people they live with. And so this little tool is about a lifeline. And the lifeline starts 5 years before you showed up, before you were born. 5 years before you were born. Did you ever think about asking your parents what was going on in their lives 5 years before you were born? You should. It'll change the way you interact with your parents. What happened to you when you were 0? And so the lifeline is all about, you know, what are the great things that happened and what are the terrible things that happened. That's why there's a plus 10, minus 10. We use this document for the interview process when the kids apply for the program. And if you're going to be real vulnerable, your lifeline will probably look something like this. And that's my lifeline. And so if you wonder what I talk to the kids about, it's about that. And there's lots of details there that we're not going to go into. But by the time I'm done talking about my lifeline, the students don't see the quote-unquote fancy suit and the really good hair and whatever else. What they see is a human being. And that is a gift. a gift that I would want all of you to share at some point. So all of our students have been unbelievably vulnerable and giving in this process. The number five thing that has been a real amazing gift to me is that I had a horrible story about the teachers at Gordon Bell. My story was that because my story was about teachers never asking me about what I felt. I had a lot of teachers making up a lot of stories about who I was. And it took me till 22 years ago to go back and talk to the teachers and say, actually, here's what the story was. And it's my story. And here's what was happening to me when I went home. And when I went to go play sports. And when I went to walk to school every day. And this is what's going on in my house and with my neighbors. And we don't take the time to ask those questions because we're too damn busy doing stuff that doesn't really matter. Making money. Playing sports, drinking beer with our buddies. So it's been amazing for me to go back and tell the teachers what my story was. And these three teachers here, who are here, Jill, Sue, and Arlene, I actually, when I go to the schools, I actually walk into their rooms and they don't see me and I listen to them teach. They're amazing teachers. And I now have a different idea, and my different idea is about appreciation. I couldn't possibly imagine having 2 kids myself, dealing with 26 of me all day. So it's amazing what happens in terms of changing your story, right? The 6th thing I'm most surprised by is a phone call I got from this guy. So I had a development meeting in my office, and as I was looking at the screen and the telephone, it kept on blinking 514, 514, 514. Now, most of my family is in Montreal. And if you're Italian, and you have families in Montreal, there's only 2 reasons they call. Somebody died, or someone's getting married. So I thought on the 5th phone call, I should probably pick up the phone. So I hit the button, I didn't even pick up the phone, and I said, hi, Frank speaking. And someone on the other line, a woman who had a very tight French accent, said, hello, is this Mr. Frank Lonardelli? And I said, yes, it is. And I said, the Right Honorable Mr. Paul Martin will speak with you. And I said, oh, okay. And I hear this, Frank, Paul? Frank, how are you doing? Mr. Martin? And I said, actually, we should stop here. Should I call you Paul, Mr. Martin, the Right Honorable? He said, just call me Paul. And everyone who was sitting in front of me, who were seasoned developers, looked and kind of went, what the hell's going on? And they left. And I spoke with Paul Martin for about an hour and a half. And he knew everything about my life story and everything about the program. And if there was one gift of the many gifts that we received, regardless of what your political disposition is, getting a phone call from a ex-seated prime minister was a big day for me. And it was a big day for our foundation because it really is something special. Number 7. So this is a bit gratuitous. This is my daughter, Elena. She doesn't look that way right now. She looks like that over there. Yeah, Elena. All right. So, you know, what we tell people in business all the time, what we tell our teams, what we try to tell our friends is if you're going to make mistakes, make them. But make them as fast as you possibly can and carry on. And it's also about transitioning. It's a hard thing that what happens to us when we're kids, right? We make mistakes and then our parents scold us or people make fun of us and then you get all this pressure and then you stop and you stop transitioning and then the whole growth process gets all screwed up. So what I tell people in general terms is that the greatest quantum of human development happens between the ages of 0 and 4. And then it all goes downhill, right? The greatest quantum of human development is between the ages of 0 and 4. Think about it. We go from not being able to eat, poo, talk, walk, run. We can't do any of that. Within 4 years, we do that. And then after that all takes place, what happens? Not a heck of a lot. And the interesting thing about kids at this age, and it's something we all should remember as we're getting older, is kids forget quickly, don't they? The reason why this picture is important, the reason I talk about it all the time, is because what you can't see. What you can't see is this massive welt on top of Elena's forehead. It was the first time that Elena actually ran for the first time. She tripped and hit a coffee table. It was the first time we sat back and had this issue that all parents do with this massive welt on top of our child's head. So what do? We put the George St. Pierre headband on her. We stuff a banana in her mouth. She smiles and says, cool, let's keep running. And that's a story we tell the kids all the time. And our kids have a massive amount of resilience. And this is a lot about our foundation. Learn fast, make mistakes quicker, and get on with life. And don't ever look back. The number 8 thing I've been surprised by is the reality around the fact that everything about this foundation has a golden thread, and it's about the golden thread of my parents. I think the greatest, and I know this is being videotaped and it could get scolded down the road, but I'll say it anyways, that I think the greatest generation of Canadians was post-World War II, and the first generation immigrants who came over here to build this country. Those are the Italians, the Greeks, the Portuguese that I grew up with, but all the other ethnic groups that came over as well. This is a country of immigrants. And there's something very interesting about growing up with immigrants, which is why it's so interesting to talk to our students. They don't make excuses. They don't feel sorry for themselves, and they have an intense attitude of gratitude. It's something that I think we're losing in our country, it's something we're losing in our families, and it's something we're losing with this generation, which just made me feel really old saying, because I heard that when I was growing up. But it's something that we all need to keep very clear and dear to us. So yes, my father died when I was 3, my mom passed away when I was 35, but their whole spirit lives within the foundation, and everything we talk about has a lot to do with my mom and dad. The interesting thing about being around the kids is you realize that in life, when you decide to go and do things, and the foundation, and make no mistake about it, is an intense endeavor. It takes a great deal of time. It takes a little bit of money, but it takes an intense amount of time. And for those of us who are parents, and I think we all are, I'll speak to the men in the room. I think one of the surprising things that I've learned is that I've always believed that I was the root system and the tree. I was the foundation, but the fact of the matter is, as I get on in life, I realize that I may not even be the branch, but I'm a mere leaf in this whole process. And the kids that we meet, and the kids that we talk about, and our students who have bravery and the ability to shoulder the type of diversity that they have, they're incredible teachers of that reality. The last thing, and I will finish this little talk on this note right here. One of the things that every business person tries to do, and it's the hardest thing to do. People always confuse the fact that the hardest thing around a business is for the entrepreneur to figure out the vision. Right, Trevor? It's not about the vision. It's about finding enough people to get connected to the vision, to paddle as hard as you need them to actually succeed to accomplish the vision. I've had some really successful companies. I've sat on a lot of successful boards, and I can tell you, without exception, this group of people, this board, if we want to call them formally, has been the hardest working, connected, most diligent, most caring group of board members I've ever worked with. And I'm going to say a few words about each of them, and then we're going to cap this thing, okay? So, Dave Coulter. Dave Coulter, if you sit on a board or if you have a business, you want a Dave Coulter on your team. Because Dave Coulter is what I refer to as a sleeper. He doesn't say very much. He's kind of quiet. He's deep thinking. And then when all the guys, me, Mark, and Paul, start scrapping, he just sits back there and he's got this look on his face. And I've realized what the look is. You guys aren't that bright. And then when we're all done and we've come up with the answer, the sleeper does one thing, and he does it every time. He sends out the zinger. And the zinger is the thing that sounds absolutely and completely ridiculous that the rest of the board members should consider. And then the board members do something very interesting. They go, holy crap, that makes sense. And then they think about things entirely different. You should all hope to have someone like that in your life. Dave Coulter is not the bricks of Gordon Bell High School. Dave Coulter is the mortar that holds the bricks of that school together. Dave, I've been honored to have you as a board member. Thank you for everything. So I found it interesting finding about how Mark got to the scholarship. There's a different story actually from my side. I called Paul up and I had this idea with the foundation 6 years ago. I said, hey, Paul, the first thing that I said after I told him what the vision was who's the guy? Who is the guy I have to have on this board? And he said, well, it's a no-brainer, Mark Cooley. And the second thing he said about Mark was he came from Selkirk. I said, well, okay. That could only be seconded if he came from Transcona. So keep telling me about it. And, beyond the story you told me about Mark, I got to meet Mark. And what most of you guys don't get is that these downtown schools are special. And that doesn't mean anything in terms of being easy. They are difficult schools to teach in. And it's not because the kids are difficult to teach. It's because they're uniquely positioned for success. And you have to be able to see it. And if you can't see it, you don't make a very good teacher. Mark sees it. Mark sees it. It's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. He sees it. And he gets it. And he got it from the first second he sat down and talked to these kids. You are not going to meet a more careful, loving, intensely connected teacher or caregiver than Mark Cooley to any student in any school across Canada. Mark's not going to be a teacher for the rest of his life. Mark's going to be building world-class curriculums that shift students' lives and shift the way teachers teach. I absolutely believe that. Mark, I've been honored to be a board member of yours, and you've been it would be difficult to see this board without you. Thank you for all your work. So last but not least, Paul always says, I shouldn't tell everybody that I've known Paul since I was 3. Well, I've known Paul since I was 3. And for those of you who are, north of 40, if you know someone since you were 3, that means you've known them since you were really a kid. And I can tell you there are no stories between me and Paul. There's 3 things that I absolutely admire about Paul LeBoon. The first thing is his parents. And that's Nettie and Arthur, who are sitting right over here. Yes, and you're going to get all bashful and red and get all nervous, Nettie, and that's awesome. The reason why I admired Paul for his parents is because his parents came to every single game that Paul played. And we played hockey outdoors at -30, and they were both there standing there. My mom couldn't come to my games because she worked all the time. And I used to fantasize about Paul's parents being my parents. And oddly enough, every time the game was done, they'd always come up to me and they'd pat me on the back and tell me how great I did. And I want to thank Nettie and Arthur. I'm so happy that you're here. I haven't got a chance to come over and say hi to you, but I'm very, very happy that you're here. The other thing that you should probably know about Mr. and Mrs. LeBoon is that they did what most heroes do. They gave up something very important. They were both professional teachers, or Mr. LeBoon was a professional teacher, and he gave it up to be directly involved in Pioneer Camp, which most of you would know. So he gave up a professional job with a professional designation to go and become involved in Pioneer Camp. So that family gave their whole life back to the community, and they've been a real beacon for me, and they've been a beacon for that community. The second thing, I should probably say a few nice things about Paul. It's hard to once you get past his parents, though. But the fact of the matter is that we don't really compliment each other that much. And we don't because we grew up tough. And you got to be tough when you grow up downtown. Paul isn't a passing intellect. Paul is a power broker in Canada. Paul is looked upon at his advice at the highest levels of government. And that's a big deal. A very, very big deal. The other thing that's very cool about Paul is that he won the award that I actually wanted to win in grade 12. I won the Gordon Bell Male Athlete of the Year, and he won the Mike Gaston Award. And Mike Gaston was the most powerful and influential father figure of any teacher, I think, in any school division across Canada. But he taught at downtown Gordon Bell. And all the kids who had a problem like I did, looked up to Mr. Gaston, and we didn't mess around with him. He was kind of he was everything. And Paul won that award, and that award was about the best student athlete. So Paul's always been an incredible student. He's always been an incredible athlete. More importantly, he's an unbelievable human being. I'm super proud of him. And I love the fact I've known you since I was 3. And I love the fact that you're on our board. And I don't think I just could have ever picked a group of more unbelievably capable, intense human beings. So I want to thank the board for all your work and appreciate everything you've done. Okay, so I think it's time to start drinking again and eating, and I appreciate everyone coming down here. There's only 2 things that I was supposed to say. Number 1, what's going on moving forward. All I can tell you about the foundation and the scholarship moving forward, keep your eyes on it. Our past will be dwarfed by our future. And there's one last thing we want to give. This is a celebration certainly of the foundation, but certainly with Lynn. Do we have the item? I wanted to give Lynn a gift on behalf of the board of directors. By the way, if you ever get in business and you're lucky enough to place a bet, like the bet that we placed on Lynn, it wasn't a bet. It was the easiest decision we could have ever possibly made, and she has absolutely paid dividends. So there's a lot of gifts here. I don't really know what we're giving her. So we're giving her, I know what's in here. Okay. So Lynn, do you want to come up here for a second? I thought that the most appropriate for us graduates that we should share is the most important day after a long journey. And this is Lynn's graduation picture. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you very much for coming out. Have a great evening, and thank you for all your contributions. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bar is open. Bids are being taken. Board and winners, can you please come up here for a photo opportunity?
The award winners? Tell them directly.
Oh, okay.
Welcome. You like that, eh? Impressive. So if I was going to call you something, that was okay. That was an okay option. Oh, that's funny. In my whole life, I grew up thinking about your name being on it. I don't know why that would be. I didn't even know you had a brother. Just the one brother? Two. Older or younger? Older. No sisters?
One older and one younger.
It's a big family.
Well, yours is cool.
We are. Apparently, we had to take a picture over here, but let's catch up. Yeah, and we'll spend some time. Enjoy the evening.
So welcome here, everyone. On behalf of Frank, on behalf of the Board of Advisors, of which I'm a member, it's my pleasure to welcome you here to the first fundraiser and silent auction in support of the Arlington Street Foundation Scholarship. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to see so many people here. It's a fantastic turnout. Frank wants me to wait 2 minutes. What do you think? Should I listen to him?
Keep going.
I always ask myself that question. I've known Frank since nursery school.
Give him 2
And we've always disagreed. I don't know what it was. I think the first time we disagreed was over who should be in charge of the policeman's cap. I'm pretty sure Frank stole it from me on that occasion. And ever since then, I've always thought twice when he asked me to do something. So when he asked me to join the scholarship, I said, "Really, Frank? You really think we can do this?" I said, "It sounds like it's pretty ambitious." Like for example, Frank, when's the last time you were at Gordon Bell High School? I said, "Yeah, me neither." I said, "Frank, you know what? I think I know a guy who goes there every day. I know him from Lower Fort Garry. He used to be a blacksmith. He's a pretty tough guy. He wears, I know him, when I used to know him at Lower Fort Garry, he wore a leather apron. And I carried on one of those heavy, like Thor kind of hammers. And people listen to him then. I think he's teaching at Gordon Bell now." So I said, "Frank, you know what? If we're going to try the scholarship at Gordon Bell, we're going to have to talk to the blacksmith." So I said, get on a plane, come down to Winnipeg, and we'll meet with him. The blacksmith is Mark Cooley, who's over here. He's a member of the Board of Advisors now. That first, let's give him a hand. That first meeting, I wasn't sure how I was going to go because they come from two different worlds. It's not the blacksmithing world, but Mark is an inner city teacher who has some radical ideas about education. Frank is an entrepreneur, a high-flying one. I'm not sure exactly they speak the same language, but I was amazed how quickly they got to arguing, and there was some sparks flying right there. I said, "You know what? This might just work." But after we worked together as a little bit in terms of hammering out the ideas, that's Mark's word, hammering, of course. We realized that we had a lot of energy, we had a lot of ideas, we like to have a good argument, but we needed a little bit of gravitas. Somebody that actually people would take seriously, and somebody who had a sense of humor that really only teachers have. And you know that sense of humor. And so we thought, who's the best candidate for this? Somebody we trust, somebody we know. And the name Dave Coulter was raised, and Dave agreed immediately to join the board. And so then there were 4. Let's give Dave. Okay. So that's just by way of introduction. I've completely gone backwards in terms of what I had written down here, but I thought that was the funny part. But thank you so much for coming, and it's really nice to see such a variety of people here. It's actually exactly what we wanted. We wanted to have people from all connected to us in all kinds of different ways. It's my honor here just to kick off the ball on this short program that we have for you. My name is Paul Laboon. I'm a proud member of the Scholarship Board, and I attended Gordon Bell with Frank in the 1980s. As I said before, nursery school with Frank in the 1970s. More recently, I served as a political aide at the Manitoba Legislature. And before that, I served in Bosnia and in Ottawa doing democratic development. We have a real treat, I think, for you here today when I've finished talking. There's some great food and drink which you've already been enjoying, and that's thanks to Maria, Frank's sister, for providing that, and the kids. It's kind of a unique event here we have today, I think, because it has multiple goals that we're trying to achieve. The first goal, I think, is as a fundraiser, and it's a silent auction. And you've seen there's some prizes in there for offer. And later, in a few moments, Dave Coulter is going to tell you more about them. But it's important that we have a fundraiser for the scholarship now. We've been doing it for 5 years. And Frank has been exclusively sustaining it on a personal basis. And so I like to just come up, put around applause right there. And the scholarship is growing. And we're finding out that when you're sponsoring just one student and providing them with free tuition and books, that's one thing. But when you start adding a multiplier to that, and now we're up to 4 and 5 students, that starts changing the equation for how much money you have. So we're learning all kinds of things. Thank you so much for coming out today. You're already being generous by being here. we'd like you to think about buying raffle tickets if you haven't already. If you bought some, maybe buy a few more. We'd like to ask you to open your hearts to the program when you hear some of the people who are going to speak, the board members and also the students, and think about making a contribution. So the fundraiser is only one of the things. Really, another big important thing we're doing today is having a celebration. And we're celebrating the fact that we have our first graduate in the program, and that's Lynn Rattan. We are going to hear from Lynn in a few moments, but she has graduated from the Department of Education, and we're very, very proud of her. So it's a fundraiser, it's a celebration, and this is also, this event is about you. It's about your connection to the scholarship. And as I look around the room, there's lots of different levels at which that connection takes place. There's sort of the inner circle of people at Gordon Bell High School, Principal Arlene Skull, Teresa Lagazar, some of the other staff there, John Gardner's here. I know Alan McGilvery is a name, pops up. People at the school who really helped the scholarship to happen at that level and have a direct relationship to it. Then there's another layer, we call it maybe a second or first circle around the scholarship, which is our support networks as board members and as recipients of the scholarship. Those are people that really support us. They know something about the scholarship, but they maybe don't know all the details about how it works. And we're happy that a lot of you are here today. Some of you aren't, but those are the other teachers at Gordon Bell. Some of those people bought tickets and they couldn't be here today. I'd like to acknowledge my parents are here today, and they've known Frank since he was that little baby kid in nursery too, and helped him get to where he is. So those are that's the first circle. Then there's some people I know that you've come experiencing the scholarship for the first time. Someone's asked you to come. You don't know much about it, so we're reaching out to you as well. This being our 5th year anniversary. It's time to kind of broaden this tent, make the tent a little bit bigger, and make a connection to people who are a little farther away from the scholarship. So thank you for being here. I just want to run over what the program is today. We're going to hear from Dave Coulter in a few minutes about the silent auction. Then we're going to hear, then we're going to take a short break. And Dave will tell you about that. But after that short break, Mark Cooley is going to say a few words about the scholarship, how it actually runs. Then I'm very excited about the next item. Lynn Rattan is going to tell us about her experience as a student coming through the program, and then we'll really find out how the program is working. Finally, Frank is, of course, going to finish off the program and bring it all together and provide a vision and future for the scholarship. I'm pleased to announce that we've sold out this function today. So thank you so much. So that's our first positive fundraising result. And now I'm going to ask Dave Coulter to come up and talk about the next steps.
So unlike Paul just said, I have no intention of following up on his plan. I was asked by, I think it came through Frank, why I said yes to joining the board for the scholarship. And actually Mark approached me, we were both staff members at Gordon Bell, and Mark didn't even know Frank's name at the time. He said some rich guy in Calgary wants to fund an undergraduate degree for a Gordon Bell student. Are you interested? Duh. Of course I said yes. But Frank, being pretty smart, wanted me to elaborate on why I'm glad I said yes. So that's a little more serious. First of all, seeing you all here, particularly my family, my friends, my colleagues, I'm very proud to share this evening with you and have you learn about the scholarship that is so important to us as the board and many people here. So really pleased that you're going to get the lowdown on the scholarship. I'm glad I said yes because I get to work with Frank, Mark, and Paul as we go through the process of selecting recipients and mentoring them. Mark has a young family, very much in demand by many groups and organizations. Excellent storyteller, and a great setup man, as you're about to find out tonight. Paul, you just, no doubt, so intelligent, thoughtful, impressed with how important the scholarship is to him and how he supported Frank in Frank's vision. Frank, just really glad that Frank decides to land in Winnipeg as he's intercontinentally crisscrossing the airways. He would anyway because his family's here, a lot of his family's here. And like all of us, family's a big deal to Frank. I'm overwhelmed with his generosity and the importance of the scholarship to Frank. He's so much more now than when he was a kid at Gordon Bell that was known as the kid that could really jump high. Most importantly, I'm glad that I get to work with our recipients. Almaz, the girl I'm sponsoring, where are you, Almaz? A little higher, Almaz, thank you. Almaz just, well, she entered university 2 years ago, but just this month, she was accepted into the Faculty of Education. That wasn't her first try, but we decided that you want to be a teacher, we're going to have to apply again. And the way the University of Winnipeg works, teacher applicants for the integrated program is they take they make a stack in order of GPAs. The lowest GPA on the bottom of the stack, the highest GPAs on the top of the stack. They then go through the stack top to bottom. When they reach their quota, they stop reading applications. I'm not going to tell you where Almaz's application was, but I will tell you it wasn't on the top. Part of the application was to explain why you wanted to be a teacher. After some minor editing, I wished Almaz good luck. But on the way home, I realized she didn't mention in her story that she was an Arlington Street Foundation scholarship winner. Thought that was odd. But then thinking about Almaz, it's not about what she's done, it was what she wanted to do. And she wanted to be a teacher. Anyway, we were supposed to hear by the end of May, and we heard nothing. So I bugged Almaz. I said, what's going on with the application? Don't know, haven't heard. Middle of June, I was starting to think, maybe she knows and just doesn't want to tell us. Last week I got an email from Almaz. The title said, uppercase, good news, exclamation mark. I was so hopeful when I opened the message. But guess what? It didn't say I made it. Shit. It said, we made it. And that's what this scholarship's about, folks. We're in it together. So again, congratulations, Almaz. We have our fun times. I love being at a sushi restaurant, watching Paul and Frank bicker over which item on the menu we should order and why isn't this on the menu. And then some disgusting presentation on a plate. It's like, who eats this stuff? They do. So I'm honored to be part of the process of selecting winners. I look forward to continuing. And in the end, it feels good to be wanted. So, as Paul mentioned, the silent auction. We have 8 great prizes. I know many of you have ventured in there and you've looked at them. But just a quick rundown, please. A 3-night stay for 10 on a beautiful lot on Lake of the Woods. got a value of about $5,000, and I see the reserve bid is $750. A 2-night stay at a fabulous resort in Calmore, Alberta. Return flight to Calgary, and you get a helicopter ride from Calgary to the resort. That's about $3,000. A Pamper Me package at the Rivers Tone Spa and a 1-night stay at the Winnipeg Fairmont. Even includes an electric toothbrush so you can look good in the morning when you go home. A Hockey's Lovers package. I think it should be a Jets Lovers package. Jets tickets in those suites. A Bogosian signed shirt. Theoren Fleury's autobiography signed. Theoren Fleury, the adversity he suffered at the hands of the monster who stole his body and soul in return for promotion to the NHL. Artwork donated by Warehouse Artworks. A beautiful piece of artwork showing the dancers, African dancers, donated by Almaz. Oh, by the way, if you notice there's a little bit of touch-up needed on Almaz's artwork, I didn't. She pointed it out to me. She said she'll take care of that for you. The Radisson Hotel Special Night Out, which includes, among other things, snappy hookers. So I don't know what value to put on that. That's up to you to bid on that. And finally, a cooking competition challenge for 10 at the Food Studio, which of course is where we're at right now, $600. The raffle, and I know many of you have already purchased tickets for the raffle, diamond pendant necklace being so beautifully modeled by one of Frank's nieces. Oh, right here. And second raffle item is a barbecue package including a $400 cargo meat voucher. Folks, it's time for, I think Paul did a good job of encouraging you to support our auction items and our raffle items. I want you to know that any money that you've donated through ticket sales or any money you've already committed to the raffle or the auction items, every penny goes to the scholarship. What you see around you today, the food, the beverages, the hospitality, the prizes, have all been donated by generous sponsors, by Frank or Frank's family. So every penny we receive goes to the scholarship. We would like you to talk to our recipients. We have 4 of them here. They actually don't have to wave their hands. They're easy to spot. They're between 18 and 24. Take some time, talk to them. Speaking of time, you don't have a lot of time to get another drink, look at the items, because after the next break, the bar shuts down. So be forewarned. Thank you. Enjoy the evening.